Let there be football. Welcome to Move the Chains. I'm your host, Jonathan Bam Rivers. My Move the Chains call sheet this week, there are reasons that teams lost, and there are three separate teams that I want to talk about regarding the reason that they didn't come out with a W in Week 7. And in my Chain Gang chat, I'm going to preview some Week 8 football games. These are games that are really intriguing to me, and a lot of them have just different aspects at the macro and the micro level. I'm not somebody that's real big on storylines. I'm not necessarily a fan of the pageantry of the NFL, even though I know it's a thing. I'm more on the content base, and I'm going to tell you why these Week 8 games are to be previewed right here on Move the Chains because they're intriguing to me. My nonsense narrative. Detroit had a big win against the Buccaneers, one I called on this show, but I don't think it makes them the NFC's best like a lot of other people, and I'll explain why. And in the final drive, the Baltimore Ravens can become what the San Antonio Spurs were. You got to stick around to see exactly what I mean because I think you'll agree with me. Having said all that, you know what time it is. It's time for the opening toss. So you can always look at a game and say, hey, did this team win or did this team lose? The answer, obviously, in my opinion, is always both. There's the team that did enough to win. There's a team that did enough to lose. And I firmly believe that more teams in the NFL lose games than win them because they either get out of character or they make critical mistakes, sometimes forced, sometimes unforced. But I want to start with the reason the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost to the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. And the reason is simple. It's 12-50. 12-50. And if you want to know what that means, I'll tell you. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers ran the ball 12 times, okay, and threw the ball 50 times. And they had, I think, 54 or 55 dropbacks. So if you have 12 rushing attempts in a game on the road against a team who's not fully healthy on the defensive side of the football, especially in the secondary, I think it's an issue. Having somebody injured in the secondary for the Detroit Lions doesn't mean Tampa Bay needs to try to come out and throw the football. Now, do I think that was the game plan when it came to Todd Bowles and Josh Grizzard, the offensive coordinator? I have no idea. I know Mike Evans got hurt. He was back along with Emeka Ibuka. The game plan might have been tailored to Mike Evans. I just feel like Tampa Bay got out of sorts. Baker Mayfield wasn't accurate like he's been this year. I understand Tampa Bay leads the NFL in passing completions of 20 or plus yards, but your identity is being a well-oiled machine offensively because you can run the football and then go play action and even throw the ball without going play action. But 12 rushing attempts just won't get it done. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after this game that they played against Lions, averaged 25 rushing attempts per game. And that's after running the ball for only 12 attempts. So that means that 25 was higher than it was post-Monday Night Football versus the Lions. I think this was just a bad game. I told you I think the Lions coming off of a loss at the Kansas City Chiefs would be in a situation to where they were angry, they wanted to be more physical, and they made the Bucs look like the Chiefs made them look, get them completely out of their game plan. So if you want to ask me the biggest reason that Tampa Bay lost to Detroit, it was 12-50. All right, the next game and the next team that I want to talk about are the New York Giants. And see, I'm going to talk about this first because I think they were unprepared to win. And I say that from a situational football standpoint. You know how a lot of teams always run the 2-minute drill. A lot of teams always make sure they understand what they need to do to get the field goal unit on the field if you don't have any timeouts, right? It's situational football. But you also have to prepare yourself to win. You also have to prepare yourself to say, if we're up 2 touchdowns, we're up 3 scores, this is how we're going to operate. And the Giants didn't operate well. And you have to give Denver credit for coming back in the fourth quarter. But the Giants were up 19 points going into that last quarter. And I think there had been over 1,000 or something games played where teams had lost down that many points in the fourth quarter. And it's completely unacceptable. And this is what I really want to speak on because Jackson Dart's been good for the Giants. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying that he's been anything but progressing and getting better as a rookie quarterback, okay? And I think that a lot speaks to the amount of times that he played in Ole Miss and the amount of snaps he got and the coaching that he received. So Jackson Dart is growing as a quarterback. But I hear this sentiment now that this game didn't matter because you've got your quarterback for the future. I'm sorry. I could have sworn I was looking at a head coach that's 21-37-1 who was like 9-7-1 his first year with the Giants and did make the playoffs and did win a playoff game against the Vikings. But since then, they've been horrendous. And Brian Daboll has been horrendous. So because you've got your quarterback of the future and you're tying Jackson Dart to Brian Daboll, things are okay even if you blow a 19-point lead. This could have been a turning point for the Giants and your rookie quarterback to grow and in the process winning games. So I don't think it's okay to blow a 19-point lead simply because you've got the quarterback of the future. Both things can be true at the same time. You've got your quarterback of the future and you have a head coach who had his team unprepared to win a game that they had completely earned up until they didn't earn it. That has to be spoken for, especially if you consider the history of Brian Daboll as the head coach with the Giants. A lot of people may think he's safe. I'm not here to fire anybody. You know I don't usually go through that rhetoric. I'm simply saying don't tell me that it's okay to blow this type of lead simply because you found your franchise quarterback of the future, which I absolutely think they have. All right, in Miami, the Dolphins. Man, they lost because they fired Brian Flores. I'm just telling you, I'm going big picture here. And I think Mike McDaniel can coach. I think he's a phenomenal offensive mind. I've told you on this show before, it doesn't matter if you're an offensive or a defensive-minded coach. You need to be able to be a leader of men and coach. I don't think that's what's happening, and I don't think you're getting leadership from the quarterback position that you thought you'd be getting. But I want to point this out. When Brian Flores was at the Dolphins, he was 5-11 in his first year in 19. 2020, he went 10-6, and in 2021, they were 9-8. So you saw a progression there. Okay, in 2022, McDaniel took over. He was 9-8 his first year, 11-6 the next year, and then 8-9 last year, and then they're 1-5 this year. So you've seen the regression. There was an overlap of Brian Flores players with Mike McDaniel who took advantage of them, but now you kind of see what's happening, and this is the biggest thing. Tua Tagovailoa, whom I have been a champion for, I still think he can play quarterback at a high level in the NFL, even though there's no leg to stand on about the way he's played recently. I'm not even going to try to defend that because you can't. He's been horrible. He didn't want Brian Flores to be his head coach because he didn't like the way that he was holding him accountable. Then you went out and asked for what you wanted, and it's not working out long term because you still hadn't won a playoff game, and you're regressing. And the team is in shambles. And we don't know what it'll look like moving forward for the Miami Dolphins. And we all know what happened with the Brian Flores lawsuit and what Stephen Ross, the owner, allegedly asked Brian Flores to do. All I'm telling you is when you fire a coach that's a true player's coach who holds you accountable and tries to help you win football games, who's never been a bad coach at any other stop as a defensive coordinator and wasn't a bad coach as the head coach, you have to make sure that you understand that as a player, you're not a general manager. You're not there to identify talent. You're there to be talent. And Tua got what he asked for. And sometimes when you get what you ask for, it puts you in a worse position than you are already in my estimation. All right, when we come back from the break, Chain Gang Chatter, some Week 8 previews. Back when we'll move the chains right after this. Welcome back to Move the Chains. Before I get to the Chain Gang Chatter and previewing a few games for Week 8 in the NFL, I want to take this opportunity, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for hosting Move the Chains. Secondly, I want to thank you, the fans, whether you're watching on the Sports Leader, Fox 54, whether you're watching on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, TikTok, wherever. I appreciate the support. The best production crew in the business. There are so many layers that this show has going on right now, and I couldn't do it without the crew. So I appreciate you guys immensely. And last but not least, the QR code at the bottom if you're hurting either financially, spiritually, mentally, or physically, and you want to put yourself in a better position in life, make sure you scan that QR code. Having said all that, you know what time it is. It's time for my Chain Gang Chatter. All right, so I wanted to preview some Week 8 games this week and get away from the questions because the NFL is always exciting to me, and there are some games that are just intriguing to me. I mean, there's no other way to put it. The first game I want to talk about are the Buffalo Bills traveling to Carolina. Now, I've seen this game so many times this year. And, of course, I'm not talking about Buffalo and Carolina. This is the first time they've met. But I've seen a team like Carolina, whom a lot of people don't believe in, whom haven't been good for that last 2 or 3 seasons, and they're trying to make a point against a team that people call a perennial favorite. This week, it's Buffalo, Carolina. In the past, it was Buffalo, Atlanta. It was also Dallas, Green Bay. It was also Kansas City and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And in all those cases, the team whom we were trying to answer questions about won, except the Dallas Cowboys, and they tied Green Bay. So I think this shows the parity in the NFL, but also shows on any given Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, things can happen. But I look at this game, and it's intriguing because Carolina's undefeated at home. This is a team that benched their starting quarterback, Bryce Young, when Dave Canales got there for him to sit, and now he's back and he's playing better. Rico Dowdle, former Cowboy, is running the ball exceptionally well. Defensively, they're continuing to get better, and they look competent. And I think that's what people wanted from Carolina. And from Buffalo, a lot of people are very down on the Bills because they had them so high at the beginning of the season. Buffalo has struggled to stop the run. Matt Milano, their best defensive player in my estimation, hasn't been healthy, and they've been undersized at the linebacker spot. And I think they had the bye week at the right time. I think Buffalo hit the bye week at the right time, and I think this will be a very good game to get right, not because Carolina's not good, but because Carolina is improved. And if you're Buffalo, truth be told, you haven't beaten good teams to get off to the 4-2 start, and you've lost 2 in a row. I trust Josh Allen for who he is. I looked at the game where they lost to the Patriots. No shame there, and they turned the ball over. You could say they played their worst game in the last 2 seasons, especially regarding the turnovers. And Atlanta out-schemed them. They didn't have a plan for the blitz, and they didn't have a plan for Bijan Robinson. I think this is a phenomenal game for Buffalo because it's against a team who is good, who is getting better, and who is very confident. If you go on the road and beat Carolina, who is undefeated at home, I think that'll reinstill confidence in Buffalo, which is what they surely need. And I think the Bills win this football game on the road against Carolina. All right, next game I want to do is Dallas and Denver, and I think this will be the best game of the weekend. This is just me. Denver's a 3.5-point favorite here, and I have to ask myself, do I believe in Denver? And honestly, Denver winning games the way that they won against Philadelphia and against, I can't even remember now, Philadelphia and the Giants, who I spoke about in the first block, it makes me worry a little bit more about Denver. And I'm not saying that it's not good to win close games. And if people want to say, hey, it's just like Kansas City last year, it's not, because Kansas City was never getting blown out until the Super Bowl. They were always in games. They were going back and forth and ended up winning at the end. Denver, can I trust you to not get blown out and then depend on the other team to bail you out? And from the Dallas aspect, this offense has been humming. And I'm not surprised. I said this before the season. The Micah trade was great for Dallas and it was great for Green Bay in the short term. I said Dallas would be better than what people thought. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they can win a game like this. I just get weary because I don't think Dallas's defense can slow down a Denver offense that hasn't been potent outside of a quarter in each of the 2 games that they've won that they've been down. I just don't think they present those kind of problems. Denver, even though they run a lot of man-to-man, I think Dallas will be able to put up points. I think Pickens and CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott are in a groove right now. Jake Ferguson will have a good game at tight end in my estimation. But I think at the end of the day, the Broncos can run the football on Dallas. They can make big plays in the passing game to Courtland Sutherland when they need to. And Denver wins this game in my estimation against the Cowboys. But I do think it's a close one. And the last game I want to preview is Green Bay at Pittsburgh. Man, I told my producer, this is the Sunday night game. I told my producer, when I looked at this game, I didn't even think about Aaron Rodgers having his history in Green Bay and now being for the Steelers. I promise you it wasn't even my first thought. And it made me feel good not thinking that because that's the conventional wisdom. It's the obvious answer there. But this is a game that's intriguing because Pittsburgh has been good in the past game with Aaron Rodgers because it's been DK Metcalf heavy. Can you blame them if that's the case? Can you sit there and say you shouldn't go to DK Metcalf? The Steelers need to run the ball better. And Green Bay is the best team in the NFC in terms of their record right now. And a lot of people say it doesn't feel like it. Well, I think Green Bay, I told you, people want Jordan Love to be more than what he is this year, but he's been very good this year. He's been clutch in the fourth quarter. He's been very good on third down. He only has, 2 interceptions this year, I believe. So Jordan Love has played at a high level. I think people want him to play at a high level, but remember, Green Bay winning a Super Bowl will be predicated on their defense and giving Josh Jacobs the ball. Let Jordan Love be great when he has to be. Doesn't have to be great the entire season, and limit the turnovers, which is what he's been doing. I like Green Bay on the road against Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's inability to run the football will give Green Bay extra possessions, and secondary of Pittsburgh has struggled against Cincinnati, and I think it'll look that way again on Sunday night. All right, when we come back from the break, a lot of people think the Lions are the best team in the NFC since beating the Bucs. I'm not one of those people. I'll tell you why that's a nonsense narrative when we come back. Welcome back to Move the Change. It's time for my favorite segment of the show, so let's not delay the inevitable. It's time for my nonsense narrative. So the next man up mentality does mean something because you can't quit. All right, Dan Campbell, phenomenal coach. The way he handled the Brian Branch situation when they lost to Kansas City, I'll never say anything bad about Dan Campbell. I love him. I love the way that he builds a culture there. I don't think Detroit's the best team in the NFC. And I think a lot of people, I've heard people say this after they beat Tampa Bay, the NFC should be scared of the Lions. The Lions are a good team, guys. I don't think they're the NFC's best. I look at their games this year, and Tampa Bay was the first team that Detroit beat this year that I consider a playoff contender. The only other team they beat that has a winning record now is the Chicago Bears. Do I think that it matters? You play who you play. Absolutely. But they're plus 91 in their wins, and they're minus 27 in their 2 losses. They were handled by Green Bay, and they were handled by the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think when it comes to the Detroit Lions, they have to play ahead in order to really dictate the terms, because if they have to come from behind, they're struggle with that, because then their play action game goes away, and Jared Goff is so predicated on play action. This is a good team. They'll probably prove my bold prediction wrong in terms of them not making the playoffs. I'm just telling you, I don't think they are the best team in the NFC. I think Green Bay's better. I think I can look at Philadelphia and say Philadelphia is better. Even when people think Philadelphia is struggling, they're still 5-2, and they've beaten some of the best teams in the NFL. And I would still take Tampa Bay, if fully healthy, on the offensive side of the football. Even though Detroit's hurt defensively too, I think Tampa Bay will beat Detroit in the playoffs if they played again. The Lions are good. I don't think they're the NFC's best. I just simply think people are overreacting and looking at what the Lions were last year and want them to continue on that trend. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be the final drive, and I'll tell you why the Baltimore Ravens can turn into one of the best teams in the NBA. Back with my explanation during the final drive, right after this. And welcome back in to Move the Chains. It's time for the final segment of the show. It's time for the final drive. The Baltimore Ravens are 1-5 and are on the verge of going 1-6 if they lose to the Bears, and they could actually be the San Antonio Spurs. I want you to remember that San Antonio was very bad before they drafted Tim Duncan, which is why they were able to draft Tim Duncan, and then the rest was history. If the Ravens have a season this year where they have a top 10 pick, nobody would have expected it. And imagine what a top 10 pick could do for the Ravens that are already loaded. I know what injuries have done this year, especially to the quarterback and their defense, and I know they haven't looked like the Ravens of old, but this is a team that could be great because they were bad this year. All right, don't forget, you can not only watch Move the Change right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54, you can also catch us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's at @move_the_change. If you go to the search bar on YouTube, like, subscribe, leave a comment. We're here for it, and make sure you hit that notification bell. Hey, for the best production crew in the business, I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. It's been another banger. And always remember, build every day of your life brick by brick. And don't forget to scan that QR code at the bottom to make your life better financially, spiritually, mentally, and physically. And until next time, right here on Move the Chains, God bless.